Okay, it's a Sunday morning and I'm about ready to go into the Salem Methodist Church. It looks, from the outside, it looks kind of like the Presbyterian church that we checked out a while back. Could be because it's also like on the same side of town, like they're literally just a couple blocks away from each other. I already had somebody wave to me from the car, so I'm pretty excited as usual. My hometown had a Methodist church, well, still does. And so I have gone to a couple Methodist services before, but as always, each church seems to be a bit different. Check this out, it's so cool. So I don't really know what it's going to be like going inside, but it's a beautiful building from the outside. Here we are from the other side of the building. There are lots of doors. I'm not sure which one to try to open, so I'm going to check out the back side first. Okay, I think that was a good call. This seems to be the actual entrance. So this is on the river side of the building. So it turns out that this is called the sanctuary, and that entrance does work. That's where they hold the traditional services, and then back behind is where they have the contemporary service. Oh my goodness, that was awesome! I loved it. It was so cool. So as you saw in the video, I wasn't sure which door to enter into, and I ended up going into the contemporary service, which I knew that's what was happening. I'll give you the lowdown on that, just kind of the sequence of events. Okay, so you walk into the, well, there's a whole bunch of snacks, like donuts and things. You're like, oh, you can have some. They're super friendly. You go into so there was a whole bunch of classrooms there as well. There's a preschool attached to the church. And we actually had the service inside of a gymnasium. And then they had the worship band up there. They had, what did they have? They had a drum set. They had a lead female vocalist. They had an electric guitar, an acoustic guitar, a violin, and a bass guitar. So the way the service started off, I took notes. Don't mind all the background traffic. The band was playing, and then there was an opening prayer. And then the kids were invited to leave to go to their Sunday school. We said the Lord's Prayer. We had time to go and greet people and say hello. And then there was another prayer offered, and then they passed around tithes and offerings, and then another song was sung by the worship band, and then there was a sermon. Let's see, so a couple notes here. Yeah, they had your standard projector with all the lyrics visible. The prayers that they said, there was all this kind of background music most of the time kind of going on. It was very similar to Grace's church. It was like combined Grace's church with the Presbyterian church, and boom, Salem Methodist Church. That's what it was. Because it had the contemporary feel with the music, but the congregation they didn't participate as much as some of the other congregations. Like, we all stood up and like whispered the lyrics, but we didn't like sing it out, but the worship band did. The sermon was amazing. One of my takeaways from the sermon was there are just so many interpretations from the Bible. Like, all of these churches that I've gone to, they've focused in on different doctrines, and there's just lots of ways to interpret it. So that was one of my personal takeaways. The sermon was all about grace and gratitude, and one of the things that I found really touching was this simple definition. The Reverend said that grace is simply the gift of God's love. And she also said that, according to the Methodist faith, this concept of grace is a very, very important aspect of it, and it's very integral to their teachings. Yeah. So then afterwards, I got a lot of other insights from the actual sermon, but I want to show you some other cool stuff. So then afterwards, I'm like, dude, okay, the traditional service is about ready to start in 10 minutes, so let me just hop on over there and check it out. So I went into their sanctuary, and it does, in fact, have a feel like the Presbyterian church that we visited. It's kind of the same setup with the big windows, and then there's like that big pulpit stand thing where the Reverend would speak, and then there's like a smaller one over here where the prayer leader would say things, but this, my friends, this was super cool. This church had an entire chamber orchestra. It was amazing. They had, violas, violins, cello, bass, a pianist, an organist, and they also had a full choir. Wow, and they just blew the music out of the water. It was so moving, and that was one of my favorite parts. In terms of demographics, at the modern service, I'd say there's probably about 150 people there. And then at the traditional service, there was probably about 100 people. In terms of young adults, it was kind of hard to pinpoint any of them in the modern service, but at the traditional service, most of the choir were young adults. They probably were college students, and they were phenomenal, phenomenal musicians. I did get 2 different programs. So this is for the contemporary service. Notice that it's smaller and the font is a lot smaller. There were a lot more like younger people at this service in general. It didn't follow a traditional order of worship, and they really emphasized like technology and that sort of thing. Now look at this one, very big. A lot of the people attending this particular service were older. I don't know if that's why they made the font bigger for vision purposes, but here, let me get in the shade a little bit. Again, this was pretty similar to kind of the Presbyterian church that we went to, and the order of worship for the traditional service was the same order in the modern service. They just used different types of music, and you know, the smaller things were different. Like when they prayed at the traditional service, like it was quiet, there wasn't any background music, but at the other one there was kind of like this background like music was used a lot to tap into spirituality. Music was used a lot in the traditional one too, but it was a more reverent feel. The sermon was the same. I left a little bit early on the traditional one because I wanted to get to another church. You know, across the modern service and the traditional service, music was extremely, extremely vital to the worship service. I found myself in the congregation though, like really wanting to like sing out more, but I noticed all of the other fellow churchgoers were, if they were singing, it was like really quiet. It was mostly like listening to the performers, like the worship band or the choir or the orchestra. So if I were to go to that church, I would probably sign up to join the choir, because the music was just so moving, and yeah, like, oh my gosh, I totally want to go to one of their Christmas concerts with the orchestra and the choir. Like, again, it had a lot of similarities between the Presbyterian church with like the style of music, excluding they did do a Lauren Daigle song, but it was like an acoustic version, so it had that still like that traditional-esque feel, but not like, yeah. And then they did like Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing. It was just like yeah. Also, another fun fact too that I noticed is after every song they clapped, which is pretty common across other churches that we visited. I just haven't mentioned it in other videos, but after each song there's a lot of applause. Doctrinally, it was all about grace, and I definitely felt more of God's love. Musically, it was, like I said, it was like going to a Joy FM concert, and then for this one it was like going to a college concert, you know, with an orchestra and vocalists. So I really enjoyed the experience, and I'm probably going to go to one of their Christmas concerts.